Hello friends, in this video I will explain what are iterables and iterators in JavaScript and how to implement them and use them. Most of us might have written code like this, having some kind of a collection like an array, initialized to some values. We can print all values in this array using for of loop syntax. Also, if we have a set object, we add some values to this set, then we print all values in that set using for of loop syntax. As you can see, we can iterate over the array elements with the for of loop. Also, we can do the same for the set object. So we can say that both array and set are iterables. And same for other built-in data types like map, for example. Let's now define the iterable as an object that can be iterated over with the for of loop. Any object that can be iterated over using this for of loop, we call it iterable. Let's explain it by an example. Let's try to implement a function range which takes 3 parameters from to and step. Step equal by default set to 1. After implementing this function, we need to be able to write code like this. Const of range, for example 1 to 5, and console log n. We need to be able to loop over values returned by this range function using for of loop. Let's start with the iterator. The iterator by definition is an object that implements a next method. So first, let's return an iterator from this function. We need to return an object that implements a next function. The next function should return a single value each time you access it. So you keep asking for the next value until you consume all values available. Let's define some variable next value. We need to start we need to initialize it to from. This function will return values between from and to exclusive. For example, this range from 1 to 5 will return values 1, 2, 3, and 4, but not the 5. Let's check if next value is less than 2, the upper limit. We need to return some value. What could be this value? This value must be an object that has two properties. First is value property, which should be the next value variable, and the other property is a Boolean property, done. This can be true or false. For now, we need to set it to false. False means there is maybe more variables, more values available in this iterator. Let's update our next value and increment it by the step parameter and return our return object. Otherwise, we can return an object. Here we can omit this property and also return a Boolean value done set to true. True means there is no more values available by this iterator. Let's try to run this code, node range. We still get an error. It says that the return value of the function is not iterable. Please note that we have two terms, iterable and iterators. For now, the range function is returning an iterator. But how can we use this iterator without using for of loop? Let's try to write another code. Let's try let's define our iterator variable to be the value returned by this function 1 to 5. As you can see, range is returning an iterator, which is an object that implements the next function. So to consume values available in this iterator, we need to call the next function. Let's get our first value from this iterator, iterator.next. How do we know if the iterator has more values or not? Remember, we have this Boolean value. We can keep checking while not result done. While done is false, we keep calling next function. First, let's log the result value. As you can see, if done is false, we have a value. And let's move our iterator. Let's keep asking for the next value. So we can set result to be iterator.next value. Let's try to run this code. You can see we got 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5 exclusive is not included in the returned list. But how to make this for of loop work? Let's comment this code and uncomment this code. Let's get back to the error. It says the value returned by the function is not iterable. The returned value is iterator, not iterable. Iterable is an object that implements a special function called iteration method. Let's define our iterable object that we need to return. We initialize to empty object. Iterable must implement a special function called iteration method. This iteration method must have a special name. We all know that JavaScript has the data type symbol. There are specific symbols for specific purposes in JavaScript. And here one specific situation. We have symbol iterator. This must be the name of our iteration method. And this iteration method is going to return the iterator. So now let's return our iterable. And let's try to execute the code again. But here we are running this for of loop. Let's try it. Now it works as expected. Let's recap. The range function must return an iterable. Iterable is an object that has a specific method called iteration method. Name of this function is simple iterator. This iteration function must return an iterator. Iterator is also an object that has a next function. The next function must return an object with two properties, value and boolean done. Here, when there is no more values available, we can omit the value property and we can return only done set to true. This for a function. But what about classes? How can we make a class iterable? Let's try to write a class iterable range. This time we are going to implement an iterable class. Let's add a constructor from to and step. We can make default value set to 1. We can store these parameters in the class object. This from equal to from, this to is set to 2, this step is equal to step parameter. To make this iterable, we need, as you remember here, iterable is an object that implements a specific method called simple iterator. So let's implement this method, simple iterator. This should be a function, a method that returns an iterator. We can copy this code and put here. Here we need to add some variables. Const from equals to this from, const to equals to this to, const step equals to this step. And let's keep this. Let next value starting from variable, and here we are returning the iterator object. Next value less than equal. We don't need to modify it. Let's update this range function to return an object of this class, iterable range, which takes an as arguments from to step. And let's try running the code. It's working. So let's say it again. An iterable is an object or class that implements a special method called simple iterator. This is called iteration method. Iteration method must return an iterator, which is an object that implements a next function. The next function also must return an object with two properties, value and done. Setting done to false means there may be more values available. Setting it to true means we have done. There is no more values in this iterator. And that's it, friends. Please, if you like this video, subscribe and like the video, and that's really appreciated. Thank you.